I hate to break it to you, but nobody wants to steal your crappy art. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, alien zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. Of course, you wouldn't know that because I never put that stuff out there for fear that it might get stolen. Actually, you've seen probably a lot of my stuff because I don't really worry about that too much. It's kind of a lost cause. But before we get any further and before I get any hate in the comments section, the intro, yeah, that's not entirely true. There are people out there who may steal your artwork. And I don't know if your artwork's crappy. You have the best artwork in the world. I don't really know that. But this is kind of a mindset that I want to get in your head. Not that your artwork is crappy, but just that, sure, maybe there are people that might take your artwork, but if you're holding that stuff in, if you're not putting it out there, you're probably doing yourself more harm than good. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And while I talk about that, I want to do a blueprint drawing. So let's get to it. Let's do the drawing. Let's talk a little bit about why you shouldn't worry too much about having your artwork stolen. Okay, let's get started on another blueprint drawing. And while we do that, let's talk a little bit about why you should stop worrying about people stealing your art. Now, first off, I want to let people know people do steal artwork all the time. And it is, it is a problem. But I think worrying too much about that, it's not going to do you any favors. But I want to start off by letting everyone know that this is not going to be a copyright video. We're not going to talk about how to copyright your art and everything like that, other than just to put something out there that a lot of people, usually newer artists, don't really understand, because I still get a lot of questions about how do you copyright your art, or what do I have to do to copyright your art? And I just want to let everyone know that your artwork is copyright the moment that you put it out there. Now, of course, there are extra protections and things you can run through the Copyright Office that might help you better if you actually have to go to court, and that's a whole thing that you probably don't want to get involved with at all anyway. But just know that once you create something, it is yours, and it also helps if you can put that artwork out there, and that will kind of chronicle when that artwork was produced. So like if you put it out on a video or on Instagram, you could easily show if you had to go to court or something like that, or just had to contact somebody and let them know, look here, and send a cease and desist or whatever, and show this is when I published this and your stuff looks awfully familiar to what I'm doing, or it's exactly like what I'm doing because you stole it. That's going to be helpful. But that's what you need to do. I mean, there's so many people out there, they're so worried to put their artwork out or their ideas out there because they think they're going to be stolen, when in fact, by putting that stuff out there, you have a little added protection. One more thing I want to say about copyright before we kind of get into the topic is that anything you create, it can't transfer ownership unless it's through some sort of a written document or some sort of agreement, and it can be, it could be digitally online, where you actually state that you are giving the rights to this particular artwork to somebody else, or the rights to use this for a particular thing to somebody else. So even if you're selling artwork to somebody, if there's no signed contract, technically you still own that. So that's good for the artist or the person purchasing the artwork to know. Okay, so let's dive into the topic. Yes, people may steal your artwork. I've had my artwork stolen plenty of times. Yes, it's wrong, it sucks, but it's kind of a fact of life. And it's something you just got to deal with, and it probably, it will probably happen to you, but too many artists are using this as an excuse to not put out their artwork, and that's pretty sad, because right out the gate, you're almost giving in to these sort of more nefarious people out there that are willing to steal your artwork and pass it off their own. You're kind of giving in to them, and you're losing some of that power to create and put things out. So if you're afraid to share your work because you're worried that somebody's going to steal it, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice. There's a lot of artists that waste a lot of time trying to prevent people from stealing their artwork, or trying to track down art thieves and doing all this stuff. And if you're spending your time doing that, then you're not creating. And I'm no exception. I had that same mindset where I was so worried that if I put my stuff out there, somebody's going to take my great ideas. But now I don't worry about it so much, because for one, I'm on to by the time I put my artwork out there, I'm kind of on to the next thing, on to the next idea, and I keep going and going, and then, there may be a small percentage of that stuff that gets stolen, but you can't really keep up with me, I guess, because I'm already on to the next thing, and I've just got, there's so many, I mean, I've got lists and lists of ideas and things that I want to put out in the world, so I'm not so worried about one particular idea. And ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. Your idea, you may have this great idea, but it's not necessarily just the idea, it's how you tell it. And somebody, you know, it's possible for two people to come up with that exact same idea. Some people don't realize that, and people think that somebody has stolen their work. Now, there are cases where somebody will just take your work, you know, physical artwork or something that you've created, and steal the whole thing, you know, not alter it at all, and just take that and put it on a t-shirt. So that stuff happens. But as far as ideas, you could have a great idea, but the way you execute that idea, two people with the same idea could execute it quite differently. There's a lot of, you know, similar things. You see similar things out there with a similar theme, and you may say, well, this one's way better, and that's probably because of the way that person took that idea and ran with it. And the reason I want people to stop worrying so much about it is that the sad reality is if somebody wants to steal your artwork, it's almost impossible to stop them. Especially, you know, they may be in other countries where copyright laws aren't the same as they are here, and they can get away with it, and it's really almost impossible to fight. Now, there are some ways you can fight copyright, and I'll give you a link at the end of this video where you can go and some ideas for that. But that's probably not going to apply to most of us. So the ability for somebody to steal your artwork, it's quite easy if they want to. It's kind of just the facts of life, especially now with the internet and, you know, digital files. It becomes pretty easy for somebody to take it if they want to, and it's really hard to prevent that. And if you spend all your time preventing that, then, like, once again, you are not creating. So I want to talk about some of the techniques, some of the methods that people will use to help prevent art thieves. So the first one I want to talk about is watermarks. Now, I don't use watermarks. If you've gone to my website, you're not going to see any watermarks over any of my artwork. And to be honest, when I see somebody using a watermark, to me it just kind of screams amateur. Because if you look at some of the most successful artists out there, they really don't use watermarks. They're not going to plaster their stuff all over the place. And I think, again, I think this is an idea that a lot of younger people have. I'm not exactly sure why. If you're plastering watermarks all over your art, it's really creating a bad experience for the person who's looking at your artwork. And that's what you want to do when you're putting artwork out there, is show people. And if it's just if you kind of got to, like, what is this? There's like, is a weird image here. I can't quite make it out. It's all over this thing. If you're really concerned about somebody stealing it, that's kind of what you have to do, is make it so it obscures most of that. Because the thing about watermarks is that they can be removed in Photoshop. The more watermarks you have on it, or the more of your image that it covers, it's a little harder to remove. But then the user experience of people wanting to see your artwork is going to be that much worse, because it's just you can't really make it out and everything. Some people put smaller images on it, but those are real easy to remove. And again, I just don't think it's necessary. It looks bad, it diminishes the artwork. And one of the things that I've noticed, not all the times, but a majority of the time, it's usually the artwork that's got a bunch of watermarks on it. It's usually the artwork that people might probably not really care about stealing anyway. It's probably people that are still kind of working on their artwork and trying to get it to a point where it's a little more professional. Where, again, if you look at most of the top artists, most professional artists, they're not going to have a lot of watermarks on their artwork. So take that for what it's worth. I wouldn't recommend putting watermarks on your artwork. In the past, there was something that I did do, and that was I would put a little URL at the bottom of my artwork. And that wasn't necessarily to prevent somebody from stealing it, because it would be really easy, because it wasn't even, I don't even think it was covering the artwork. It was just, you know, just right down below the artwork. And somebody could easily just crop that right off, no problem at all. But it's not always people that are just trying to steal your artwork. It's also, you know, people they see something cool and they want to share it. And when they share that out there, if your URL is attached, then they can find it. You know, of course, like I said, they can take that out, but that's usually not always the intention. Somebody may just think it's cool, want to share it out, and if they get shared, sometimes people, it doesn't transfer as it gets shared. The more it gets shared, people don't really know who was the originator of that. So in the past, sometimes I put like a little URL at the bottom, but now I don't really bother to do that at all. Because the more time you're putting into some of these techniques to prevent people from stealing your artwork, the less time you have to be creative. And that's going to be sort of a running theme here. The other thing some people do is they disable the right click, and there's a way to do that. So if somebody right clicks on your image, they can't copy it. Theoretically, they can't copy it, although they can, because with all of these techniques, there are workarounds, and it's real easy. And I've done this too, not because I've been trying to steal people's artwork, but there's other reasons that people might want to use your artwork or whatever rather than just stealing it. And by setting up that right click, first of all, it's sort of an extra step that you need to put on all your artwork. And there's definitely a workaround, because it is nothing for somebody to take a screenshot. Every PC, every Mac has the ability to take a screenshot. You can go into Photoshop or whatever, and crop that out or do whatever you want. And like I said, there are some reasons why you might want somebody to be able to have that ability to right click to use their artwork, not to steal it. For instance, I do a show called The Artcasters, where every week we have a different guest on, and rather than bothering them saying, hey, can you send me some artwork? I can't right click on your image or whatever. I want to use that for the thumbnail. And rather than having to wait and just create all these other steps, it's real easy for me just to go to a portfolio, find a piece of artwork that might look good for that, and then copy it, paste that into the thumbnail. And since that person is actually part of my guest, I am using that to advertise them. And you know, like I said, some people want to share something, and as long as they give credit, I don't mind if they share it out there. That's great. So I don't disable right click on any of that stuff. The other thing is sometimes, you know, I'll see like a painting or whatever, and I don't want to copy that painting, but maybe it's got a pretty good color scheme. So I might just, you know, right click on that painting and then just sample some colors for it that I can use for some artwork that's entirely different. But yeah, there's a number of other reasons why you don't want to disable that, you know, because it's going to take away even from possible future sales of your artwork, or maybe even getting additional client work or jobs out of it. Because a lot of times what, like an agency, if they're coming up with a campaign, in order to sell it, they need to create like a mood board or something to present to the client, and they may really like your artwork. So they may go in there, right click, take some of your images, put them on the board, and if the client likes that, then there's a big possibility they can contact you, because if they like your artwork, why would they have somebody else do something similar? They're probably going to contact you, and you can get some work out of it. So that's why I don't really worry about disabling that right click. Another technique that artists do to help prevent people from stealing their artwork, or at least to sort of track it down or prove that it belongs to them, is metadata. Now, I don't really do this so much. This is one that I don't think is a bad idea to do if you want, because it could be beneficial, not just to prevent artwork or whatever, but also just for cataloging your artwork. If you're trying to find it on your computer, do a search or something like that. But you could do a right click on your image, and you can go down and there's properties, and you can go ahead and fill in some information, who authored it and everything. And that's not something that, to my knowledge, you can really change once it's in there. Most people don't even see that. So the good thing is it's not intrusive. It's not like a watermark where when you put it up there, it's just gonna ruin that viewer experience. It's sort of on the back end, but it is something that if your artwork does get shared out there, you can go into that and you can kind of find out who the original author is. It also might help if, you know, if somebody does see something on there and want to know who it is, and if it doesn't have a URL or something attached to it, or it's not mentioned who's the original, you know, creator of that artwork, you can go in there and find that out. Again, like I said, it's searchable, so that's not a bad idea. The only reason really why I don't do that is, again, it just takes an extra step that I could be using to create more things. So that's why I don't really worry too much about that metadata, but that one's not really a bad way to go. One other thing you might see, and this was more prevalent back when the internet was young, and not only to prevent theft, but just because back then it took a while to upload file sizes, and that is just to only put your artwork up there as super small images or super low resolution. Now, I still would not advocate putting your artwork at full resolution out there, because it's not necessary. You know, I wouldn't go, when you're posting online, I wouldn't go above 75 DPI, but that doesn't mean it has to be super small. Chances are it's just not going to be, if it's at 72 DPI, it's probably not going to look good. It's probably going to be a little fuzzy. It's not optimized for printing, but it's good enough to view on the internet. So I wouldn't be too concerned about making these super small images that nobody's going to be able to see anyway. If you go to my stuff online, you can see most of my artwork. It's presented at a fairly decent size, so you can make it out. And then there are other things you can do if you want. Like sometimes I'll have a picture of somebody showing my artwork, and it might be slightly skewed, like from a different angle where you can see the artwork, but if somebody tries to take that and put it on something, it's just the angle's not going to be quite right. But you don't want that angle to be so off that you can't make out the artwork again. So there's little things you can do if you really want to, but again, it's more time and effort that's probably, like I said, if somebody wants to take your artwork, there's really nothing you can do to stop them if they really want to. Now, so far I've just been talking about, you know, putting your artwork out there on the internet. Now, if you're working with a client, maybe you definitely don't want to send them high-res stuff either, because when you work with a client, sometimes it's not always clear, like, oh, can I use this now or whatever? Maybe they've paid you some money, but they haven't paid the full amount, so maybe they think they might have the right to use it right now. There's some confusion in there, so even if you can put a little something on there, maybe saying that this is per approval. Once you approve that, this will be removed, or this is a low resolution. When I'm submitting artwork for approval, before I've received payment on it, what I'll do is I will let the client know that this is a low resolution. Don't print this because it's not print quality, just so they know that, you know, they've got, in order to get that high resolution quality piece of artwork, then you got to wrap everything up and finish that contract, and then they'll get all that. So, but you know, mostly we're just talking about putting artwork online for the public. So those are some of the techniques that people use to help prevent people from stealing artwork, which arguably could just be sort of wasting your time. Like I said, there is a very real possibility that your artwork can get stolen. I've had my own pieces stolen, repurposed, put on products. It's really weird how some people don't even realize it's wrong, but that's a whole other topic to get into. But a lot of the time we're so worried about people stealing our artwork, when in fact, I mean, I have a hard enough time selling my own artwork. So for somebody that's not me to take that artwork, somebody that hasn't been using that in their brand and everything, and building up some interest through the stuff that they do that's sort of attached to them personally, if I have a hard enough time selling that stuff myself, I think anyone taking it is going to have just as hard of a time, if not harder. And so it's possible somebody may take your artwork, put it up there, and you'll notice that they haven't sold a thing. A lot of times what I kind of get irked at is they'll take my artwork and then they'll do something to it and make it look horrible, or just present it in a way that looks so bad. And then in that case, if I know about it, then I'm like, definitely take this down, because not only are you stealing it, but it's making me look bad, because somebody might think it's me when it's just, you know, they'll put some bad type on it or something like that. So if I notice that my artwork has been stolen, I will send out like a cease and desist, let people know that they can't use the artwork, that they don't have the rights to it. But I don't go around wasting my time looking for people that have stolen my artwork. And you don't have to, because the cool thing about the internet is that it's self-policing. If you've got an audience or whatever, and sometimes, you know, it doesn't even have to be a big audience, but if somebody sees something you do, even a family member, if they see something out there that you've done and somebody else is selling it, then they'll come to you and say, hey, look, somebody stole your artwork. And a lot of times I get emails like that. I'll check it out, and yes, somebody has stolen it. And then sometimes people think that somebody's stolen something when actually I gave them the rights to use it, another company or whatever. So the internet is out there. Your fans, your friends, your family, they will look out for you. So you don't really need to worry so much about that yourself. Just keep creating. And don't let your fear of somebody stealing your artwork stop you from sharing it, because the benefits outweigh the risk like 100 to 1. Take for instance, so I sell digital products, all right? Like my comic maker toolkit. I've got one coming out called the Amazing Comic Book World Builder. I create all these digital products. Now, digital products are real easy to steal. It's in a digital format. Somebody could share it with somebody else, and you know, and it could get put out there on the black market or whatever. And I'm sure that my stuff has been stolen a number of times. But if you ask me how many times do you think that your digital products have been stolen, I couldn't tell you, because I don't dwell on that. I don't worry so much about that. Because if I would have said to myself, well, I don't know if I should put this digital product out there because somebody's gonna steal it, and maybe a lot of people are gonna steal it, and if I didn't put that out there, I'd be out a lot more money. Because I've sold many copies of the Comic Maker Toolkit, and sure, it's probably been stolen, but if I wouldn't have put that product out there, you know how many I would have sold? A big fat 0. So that's why I say that the benefits outweigh the risk. And for your own sanity, try not to worry about how many times it's been stolen and kind of concentrate on how many times it's actually brought in money for you. And it goes back to that, if you think somebody's stealing it and making money off of it and you're not, that's probably not the case, because if you're not able to sell it, chances are somebody that has stolen it probably can't either. So think about it this way: if you're not putting your artwork out there, nobody's going to find it, nobody's going to purchase it, nobody's going to start following you, you're not going to build an audience. You're missing out on so much by not putting your artwork out there. Sure, if you put that out there, there may be somebody that steals it, but the thing you have to realize is the people that are going to steal your artwork were never going to buy it in the first place. So if you think, oh, they stole it, if they would have bought it, then I would have made a sale. Well, here's what you need to realize: they weren't going to buy that. The people that steal stuff would have never bought it, all right? It's not like, I'm going to buy this, but no, I think I'm going to steal it. No, it's always people steal stuff because they were never going to buy it in the first place. So you're really not out a sale. All right, so let's say you are in this unique situation where somebody's brought this to your attention or whatever, that somebody has stolen your artwork. Maybe they put it on like Redbubble or something like that, and they're actually making sales, they're actually making money. Or I know more established artists who have had their work stolen and then it's put in like a Hot Topic or something like that. This stuff happens. Now, there are ways to prevent this, and I'm going to leave a link to a video. It's from Adventures in Design, a great podcast hosted by Mark Brickey. He had on Gerald Tidwell, who talked about some techniques that he used to help prevent this. Now, the thing you should know is that Gerald Tidwell is a very popular artist. His work has been, it's loved by a lot of people. It's very polished, and it's kind of work that people have seen all over the place because he posts it all over the place, and it's this kind of thing that people are likely to take and try to use it for their own benefit. For most of us, that's not the case. Most of us, our artwork isn't in that high demand. Even artists who, like myself, I would say I am a very accomplished artist as far as it being professional quality, but there's still, I'm not selling stuff hand over fist like that. So the information in the video that I'm going to link to is probably not going to apply to most people, but if you are in a situation where you have had tons of your artwork stolen, there is ways to prevent this. And some pretty cool techniques, and it's just an interesting podcast to listen to. It's about an hour long, and it's worth every penny just to be informed about it. But I haven't done any of those techniques because I'm just not in that position, and I'm sure most of you guys aren't either. But if you're constantly having your work stolen and people are constantly making money off your artwork, there's some really good ways you can use to prevent that and actually not only stop them from selling that, but make some money off of it. Because this artist, he does this, and I don't know if this is still the case, this is an older video, but he's making more money off of the lawsuits getting money back from these big companies that stole his artwork than he is probably selling his own artwork. So that's a unique situation most of us it's not going to apply to, but it's a good listen, so I'm going to put a link to that in the description. But just to sum everything up, like I said, if you're worried about people stealing your artwork, if you're spending all your time trying to track down art thieves, if you're putting all these techniques into place trying to prevent that from happening, you're just, and maybe subconsciously, but you're putting off actually creating something. So don't let that worry you so much. Put your artwork out there, and if somebody happens to steal it and you happen to find out, you can cross that bridge when you come to it. But don't let that hinder your creativity. Start putting your stuff out there. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to put your artwork out there so I can steal it and take it for myself. Okay, that's going to wrap up another blueprint drawing and another topic discussed, but it's not over because we can continue this in the comments section. I don't want to know what you guys think about this whole, worrying about people stealing your artwork. Have you had your artwork stolen? Let me know. Those are always good stories. Hopefully you haven't had a lot of artwork stolen. Are you worried about putting stuff out there for fear that it's going to get stolen? Let me know in the comments section. You kind of know my opinion. I've got my work stolen before, but I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to keep creating. I'm going to keep putting things out there. And if somebody does steal it and I find out about it, I'm going to come after them. But I'm not going to worry about it too much before then. Hopefully you won't either, but let me know in the comment section. I'll see you guys later. That is all. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. If you like making comics, then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more, and best of all, it's totally free.